Hey guys, welcome back to the Healthy Scratches podcast. I'm your host, Nicholas Hauke, here with Jacob Fraser. Jacob, how are you doing?
I'm doing a lot better than the Canucks. I'm a bit sick right now, but after that game last night against the Calgary Flames, I'd say I'm feeling better than the Canucks should be, at least this morning.
Well, speaking of feeling sick, Quinn Hughes definitely looked sick to his stomach after that one. Did not look very happy with his team's performance. We'll get to that a little bit later. It's been a little bit since we talked to you guys, and we have a whole road trip to go through. We'll, of course, get to that Flames game yesterday that was ugly to say the least, but let's start on the road, Jake. We talked last week about this road trip upcoming, and we did not have a lot of positive things to say. I think we took the under when I gave you 2 points if the Canucks would reach that mark. And you know what, Jake? They got 3 points out of a possible 6, and maybe undeserving in all 3 of those games. Against Carolina, Jake outshot 38-17. Against Tampa Bay, 30-18, and then against Florida, 41-15. But for whatever reason, this team, when they're being outshot heavily, other than the Florida game, which seems to be the outlier, they seem to win. Let's start with that. Now, the Carolina game, an overtime loss, but really outplayed pretty heavily for most of that, but managed to eke out a point in that game.
Yeah, the score 4-3 in overtime doesn't do that game justice. That's kind of the theme with a lot of with all 3 of the games, honestly, on that road trip. Like, they just got flat out outplayed by Carolina in that one, and they did a good job of squeaking out a point. And I mean, maybe there's a couple bad missed calls that didn't go the Canucks' way, but one thing that this team has been able to do, and the reason why they're not quite yet drowning this season, is they've been able to bear down on their chances and score a lot of goals, right? On such few shots, like you mentioned. So yeah, I mean, I I am feeling fairly happy with how that road trip went, considering the fact that it was Carolina, Tampa Bay, and Florida, and you get 3 points there. But I mean, they still don't really. They're still below 500, the 30th in the league. Like, there's not a lot of good to say about this team right now.
No, there certainly is not. And we'll get to the defensive woes that have been plaguing this team all season long in a little bit, and we'll do a detailed breakdown. If you guys did not see, Jacob did an excellent article on Canucks Army about exactly what Coach Foote's system is and how it functions. So make sure you guys check that out. And we'll go over that a little bit later in the podcast. But for now, yeah, that road trip, Jake, you mean, like, how many times do you think a team has lost shooting 33%? And scoring 5
Yeah.
goals.
Yeah.
That Florida game, you get 5 goals on 15 shots and you lose 8-5. It's pretty crazy. Not a lot of good things to say about this team right now, but hey, they managed to get 3 points and they go back home and they play Dallas at home in front of their home crowd. And Jake, they probably have the best game they've had all season. They're playing with a very competitive Dallas team who maybe hasn't had the same oomph that they've had in previous years. New coach there. Wonder if they're getting used to their system. They made it fairly deep in the playoffs last year, so maybe they're having some trouble getting going to start off with, but they play excellent and they lose that game, Jake. And the Canucks really gave it all they had, kind of played as well as they possibly could. Is this maybe kind of a systematic issue of this roster? Is they're just not equipped to play with the big boys that have firepower like Rantanen? And I know Duchesne's hurt, but you still have Heiskanen and Sagan and all those guys. So that may be an issue with the squad.
Well, I think it just speaks to the depth of the Canucks roster. Like, in that Dallas game, the Pedersen line was getting a softer matchup, which he's been taking a lot of those harder matchups on, usually taking on the top line. But it was actually the Ratu line, I think, that was matched up against Rantanen, and then who's the other center? Oh, David Kampf had
Yeah.
the Rupe Hintz line matchup. So yeah, I mean, that's not a recipe for success. Like, David Kampf going up against Rupe Hintz, Atu Ratu going to get up against Mikko Rantanen. Like a team like Dallas, they're so deep offensively and defensively as well, but primarily their offensive group is so deep and so good. The Canucks just can't compete with teams that have that much depth.
Yeah, that seems to be true. And you got to give it to Ratu. He actually, like, that line did a pretty darn good job against that Rantanen line. But yeah, it just the thing is when you have those truly star players, and I know Quinn Hughes is on a different level, but he's a different type of star. Like that backhand spinorama goal by Rantanen, he's been held in check most of the night, and then he makes that ridiculous play, has an inch of space and scores. And the Canucks don't really have that, and it's hard to match when they do that. Speaking of David Camp, we got to finally see him on that road trip and the last couple games. What have you thought of his play so far?
Honestly, I haven't really thought too much about it. Like it's been what, 4 games now. He's had 2 practices with the team. Like it's a big adjustment for him, and he's been fine. Like nothing, he hasn't harmed the team in a super negative way, but he hasn't really provided any extra help. I mean, the penalty kill is still a struggle defensively, as we've mentioned and we're going to talk about. It's still not really looking great in the D zone. So yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I just pulled it up. He's played 3 games. He's a -2, and it's not the worst start, but what more can you really expect from a guy like David Kampf? Like you sign him as your 2C, but he's not going to come in and be a dominant 2C by any means.
No. You did mention, though, in that Dallas game with Kampf in the lineup, Pettersson did get a softer matchup. Is that at least maybe a tiny bit of a saving grace with this acquisition? He is capable of playing decently hard defensive minutes and maybe taking a little pressure off Petey so he can get and contribute more on the offensive end of things.
Yeah, I think so. Like uh, it was Ratu matched up against that top line, but Camp was able to take on that second line, and that's definitely a good thing. But you can't win games, especially this team. They're not going to be able to win games 2-1, 3-2, or in these low scoring affairs, right? Like they kind of need to outscore their opponents. So yeah, you want a guy like Elias Pettersson to go be that offensive force, but he's also not going to be able to put up 3 points every single night, right? You still need some offense deeper in your lineup, and that's just something that the Canucks don't have.
Are you telling me that shooting 33% isn't sustainable? That's not a valid plan? Such a hater, Jake. Such a hater. Um, Speaking of being a hater, the Calgary game does not go well. And in Vancouver this weekend, some really historic events. Really historic. You have the first PWHL game at home on Friday, which was a banger of a game, an overtime win for the Golden Eyes. Watch that whole thing. Really exciting stuff. After that, you have the Whitecaps, and I'm not going to pretend to be an MLS fan. I'm not going to hop on a bandwagon. That's not my nature. But pretty incredible, massive win in a penalty shootout. Pretty remarkable stuff there. And I think you can honestly make the argument right now that the Whitecaps are the biggest ticket in town and have the best fan base currently, actually, with the way that their fans are filling BC Place. Then you have the finale, the Vancouver Canucks against arguably the worst team in the NHL, the Calgary Flames. And Jake, whether the Canucks wanted to be the finale or not, this was almost like you have prime 50 Cent, prime Dr. Dre opening for Little Pump. Because the Canucks definitely laid an egg and were not on the same level as those two teams in their respective leagues. What can we say about just the letdown of that game?
I mean, things started well. Like Hronik scored on the first shot of the game, and it was almost or just over a minute into the game. It was a good start for the team, and then the Flames scored 2 quick ones, and it looked like they just decided, oh, the game's over here. Like that second period was, I had to watch the game for work, and I wanted to quit my job. Like I don't want to watch this.
Oh boy.
Like it's not a fun team to watch. Like there are teams that even when they're losing, they're still fun to watch because there's a guy like Quinn Hughes on the team, a guy like Elias Pettersson on the team, but they just completely disappeared in that Calgary Flames game. And they decided to turn things back on when it was too late with a few minutes to go in the third period. And Quinn Hughes scored that really nice goal. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. You've got an opportunity here to play a team who played 4 games in 6 nights across 3 different time zones. At home, you've had 2 or 3 days off, and they're also the worst team in the league. You've got to come out with a win. Like a point isn't enough. You've got to come out with a win there, especially a divisional opponent like Calgary.
And not even close to that. And also, even worse, Jake, the look on Quinn Hughes' face during that third period and second period, for that matter. This looks like a player who's incredibly frustrated right now. I know everyone's been talking about it for a long time, and a lot of fans don't want to admit it. Are his days numbered? And if so, which probably yes, how much longer do you think the Canucks can possibly try to hold on to him at this point?
I mean, knowing how this team does business and how this ownership likes to have these big ticket players so that they can keep raising the ticket prices, they're going to hang on to him as long as they can, I think. But realistically, this season was, okay, Quinn, we're going to prove to you that we're building something special here. We're building a contender. And last year was bad, but this year is going to be so much better. And then you bring in Evander Kane. That's your big acquisition in the offseason. And nothing changes. And so I feel like if I'm Quinn Hughes, I'm fed up with this team, with this management group for all these promises that he's probably been given. And I'm going, okay, this is my last year here, and I'm going to force my way out this offseason at the latest.
Yeah. I mean, this was a second round team who made it to game 7 against the team that lost in the Stanley Cup Finals in another game 7. And they've gone from that to doesn't even like, I don't think playoffs are even plausible at this point with this group. So he has every right to be frustrated. And one thing that's particularly frustrating, Jake, is we mentioned the roster building. This group put an emphasis on having a better defensive unit. And on paper, it looks night and day to last year, yet the Canucks are at the bottom of the league in most important defensive stats. I know Adam Foote would disagree with that with his bizarre comments today during a scrum, but regardless if he cares about the guy in Russia and what he says, they have not been good defensively. Jake, as we talked about and alluded to earlier, you did a breakdown. Let's take a look at what they're doing systematically and why things maybe aren't working for this group.
Yeah, for sure. I did this little breakdown here, just going through essentially their defensive zone coverage for the most part. I did like their breakout and forecheck and everything, but the biggest thing has been their defensive zone coverage. So you can see here on the screen, this is how they like to play in the D zone. So you've got in the corner here on this left side image, puck's in the corner, opponent has the puck. First D-man in is covering that guy. Then you've got usually your centerman, but just first forward back. The Canucks like to play a lot more positionless. That's just the way that the game is nowadays. Like, just because you're center, you're only lining up as a centerman at the faceoff circle, realistically. Other than that, it's first guy back takes that role on. So he's in supporting. F2, so your strong side winger will be near the top of the circle. And then you've got your second defenseman net front and your third forward kind of in that high slot area. And then as you can see on this right side image, once the puck is moved up to kind of above the hash marks and further up than that, they switch into a little bit more man coverage. And so the centerman who is supporting the defenseman in the corner there switches on to that guy on the half wall. The wingers take their defenseman, and the defensemen take the two low forwards. So it's different than what Tocchet did. Tocchet mostly stuck to that box and one. So you had defenseman in the corner, defenseman in front of the net, winger in the high slot, winger top the circle, and then that low forward supporting the defenseman was kind of always there, taking away the middle of the ice. You'd even maybe have that weak side winger hanging lower, but so they've switched to this style of play defensively, which is a little bit different. But where we see breakdowns, I drew these up as well. A lot of the time, so the puck gets brought up to the point by the forward. In this left side image, you can see he moves it to the defenseman. The strong side winger stays with that defenseman, but the weak side winger, rather than sticking with his defenseman on the weak side, he's often creeping up and trying to disrupt some kind of play and support the other winger. So both wingers are taking one guy while that defenseman floats down, as you can see through that with that line here. He floats down, and then it's just an easy pass. Once this D-man gets to the middle of the ice, it's an easy pass, and then it creates a little 2-on-1 right in front of the net. Same kind of thing over here. We often see where the strong side winger instead will help support the centerman, and then this strong side defenseman that's going to the middle of the ice, he gets the puck, and then the weak side winger has to make a decision there and go, do I want to take the puck carrier, or do I want to stick with my guy and let him have a free lane to the net? So that's what I had as far as the breakdowns and the D-zone coverage. But yeah, it's the biggest thing is you can't lose focus in this system, and you have to just be willing to stick to your man. And if one of your teammates gets beat, it's not your job to recover for him and take his position, because then that leaves someone else open. And that's been a common theme when you watch some of these breakdowns in the defensive zone. A lot of the time guys are getting out of position because, their teammate's getting beat, so they come in to support, and then that leaves an open man for the other team.
So what I'm hearing here, Jake, is rather than this being a systematic issue with what Coach Foote is teaching his players, it's a player issue of not executing and doing your job properly.
Yeah, I kind of think so. And I think that is something that Adam Foote has alluded to a little bit as well. He's talked about how, especially with the young guys, he always says the young guys are adjusting to this this new system that he's implemented, and there's a lot of teaching that's been going on within the team. But yeah, I don't think that personnel is a huge issue, because I think there's a lot of guys on this team that have the speed to be able to keep up in this sort of system. You need to be able to play with speed so that you can keep up with your check, and you need to be physical. And I think the Canucks have a decent amount of that. Like, you don't need to be making huge hits or anything like that, but you need to be physical enough where you can bump a guy off the puck. But yeah, I think there's just a lot of puck watching going on with the predominantly with the forwards, but sometimes with the defensemen as well, where guys are watching the puck on the other side of the ice, and then, my defenseman sneaks down behind me, or the net front forward sneaks up into the high slot because the defenseman in front of the net is watching the puck in the corner.
Right. So the Canucks haven't had a lot of practices. That has been a point that a lot of people have made. Road trips with this condensed fast schedule, they haven't had enough time to really get into the finer details of their system. Is this something that you can see them getting better at quickly, or how long do you think this is going to take?
I mean, yeah, I think that they can get better at it, but quickly, I'm not so sure, because realistically, there's not going to be a lot of practice time this year. That's just the reality of the condensed schedule. That's the reality of playing in the NHL in an Olympic year. So maybe it wasn't the right time to implement a brand new system. I mean, Adam Foote was here last year. He could have stuck with Tocchet's simple, taking away the guts of the ice hockey that he always talked about. He could have stuck with that system for a year and then maybe next season tried to implement this starting in training camp and things like that. So yeah, I think this is definitely something that the Canucks can improve on, and that can be an effective defensive system. But with the reality of the schedule this season, I don't know if I see it getting much better before it's too late, honestly.
So, Jake, as you're saying, as Nicki Minaj once said, might be time to pound the alarm here. Sirens might be going off a little bit. Yeah, I mean, and I think another reality of this is as an NHL head coach, you don't really have time to wait. So Adam Foote kind of maybe didn't have a choice in trying to implement this system if he truly believes this is what they need to do to win games. So very that's some good stuff, man. It's really good. Make sure you guys check out that article. Jacob goes even more in depth in it. Really, really good stuff here. As they move on and try to get better defensively, Jake, they have another road trip ahead of them here after a quick 2-game homestand. You have two teams that have torn it down and rebuilt properly. You got the Anaheim Ducks, you got the San Jose Sharks, then you have the LA Kings, and then you have the powerhouse Colorado Avalanche. So out of these 4 games, Jake, possible 8 points, I'm going to set the over-under at 4. What are we thinking?
Oh, I thought you were going to set it at 2. I'm taking the under. I mean,
Jake, as we've seen, like on the road, this team can get heavily outshot and score at a 33% rate on their shots. So they're never out of a game. No, so
that's true. I just think like the Anaheim Ducks, they're so good this year. They've been unbelievable. I don't know if I see a world where the Canucks can beat them, especially they have good goaltending. They've got a really good decor and everything. The Sharks, I think the Sharks is a winnable game. I think the Kings is a winnable game, but in a back-to-back, I know one's an early afternoon game and the other's an evening game, but it's still a back-to-back with some travel. So I'm not so sure. And then Colorado, I don't know if I have any belief that they can win that game.
Well, if you ask Jacob Fraser, things are looking bleak. But you know what? No matter how bad things get, guys, we are going to be here each week to give you guys all of our opinions on this wonderful Canucks season so far. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Healthy Scratches. I'm Nicholas Hauka for Jacob Fraser. Thank you for listening, guys.